Hi, welcome to the Indie Wine Podcast. My name is Matt Wood, and this is episode 8. I recently spoke with Kristie Tacey of Tessier Winery. We persevered through some power outages due to the storms in Northern California and talked about her transition from microbiologist to natural winemaker, as well as making Pinot Noir from Anderson Valley and the Santa Cruz Mountains, making skin contact whites, and what music means in her life. I hope you enjoy. Here we go. So yeah, you started in microbiology, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in microbiology, biology from the University of Michigan. And then I promptly moved to California after I got my degree. I grew up, born and raised in Michigan.
How come you decided to leave?
There wasn't a lot of diversity, pretty homogeneous population. And I had visited California a couple years before I graduated and really found it to be, the weather was great. Just a lot of diversity, lots of different kinds of food, just like less judginess. If you were like slightly different, I felt like it was more accepted. And I don't know, I just felt like at home here.
That's great. And have you always had an interest in wine, or did that start more when you moved to California?
Yeah, it started more when I moved to California. I mean, in classes and stuff, of course, we talked about fermentation and wine, but I wasn't drinking wine really, just like crappy stuff, like Boone's Farm and like stuff like that in high school. Embarrassing, but yeah.
That's okay. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
What caused you to want to make wine your full-time career?
Well, when I visited a winery when I was 21, my cousin took me wine tasting up in Sonoma. And that's when I was like, this is a lifestyle that I want, and I didn't really understand all the different grapes, like made the different wines, like all the different varietals. And I just started like cluing into that. And thought, going through the cellar and stuff, like, oh, this is like a lab, and this is really cool. Like there's the behind the scenes, and then there's also people enjoying it and just having fun, and beautiful property. Like I was always into the natural sciences, so like soil, botany, and ecology. Like those were the things that I really liked in college. And I just thought like it all could really come together. And I also like the idea of working with your hands and like making a product. I really wanted a passionate career. So that was kind of what was missing in my science career. I started in the genomics field because that was kind of hot at the time. And that's very like microscience. So we were working with single nucleotide polymorphisms, which is even smaller than genes.
Okay.
And I worked on the Human Genome Project, and then later at a biotech that kind of applied that knowledge to different disease groups. And it was just very micro. And I just didn't feel like it really fit me that well. So I wanted something more, that I could touch. And I also liked wine, that there are many facets of it. Like I said, the community part, the behind the scenes part. And I thought that was really cool too, that I wouldn't get bored,
Okay. Did you work for other wineries as you were getting into the business? How did you make that transition?
Right. So when I was a research scientist, I kind of sat at my computer, like researching wineries I had went to, and I was really curious about the small brands. So I would email them, and they were all like, "Don't quit your day job, we don't have any money to hire anybody." And now, like, I totally get it. So I wasn't really sure how to get into that, but I wanted to. And there was an urban winery in Oakland at the time, the Lost Canyon Winery.
Okay.
And I had went by in there. I was really into Pinot Noir at that time too. And I tasted with them, and I was just so excited about it. And I was so excited that they were offering a job for operations manager, assistant winemaker to kind of like do everything. So I felt like it was a sign. And I had also listened to this NPR story about someone like changing their job, even though you made less money, but doing like a big career change. Because my Midwestern instincts were not that. They were like, this is just my job. Like, this is my career now. I was like 30, 31, 32 that I was really questioning my career path.
Okay.
So I just took all of that as a sign, and I ended up getting the job. And they were really great. The two guys were used to run special needs schools, and they still had their day jobs. And so I was taking over running the winery while they were working. But they were very encouraging, and I did everything alongside of them, and just like so much positive reinforcement that I hadn't really encountered in the science world. I never really felt smart enough. And it's kind of like a critical career path too, like, because everything needs to be so precise and perfect. And it was just really great. But after 3 years, they decided they were going to sell the brand. And that's when I decided to start my own brand, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it at the time. It was in 2009. So yeah, I did my first vintage. They connected me with a grower, Sarah Lee Cundy, up in Sonoma County, and she agreed to sell me my first, I think it was 2 tons of grapes. So I was really excited, and that's where it all began.
Working for others, we're able to learn a lot of the nuts and bolts and kind of the day-to-day of running a small winery. I imagine that was pretty helpful.
For sure. At Lost Canyon, they were home winemakers before they got the space and launched their brand. So when, I was running their wine club, I was running their tasting room. And so it just did help me see the whole big picture. Then I would do the government reporting and like all the behind the scenes stuff. And at the time, I also took some lab classes at Davis to set up their lab in-house so I could do the lab testing to save them money and teach them how to do that. So that was really cool too. And when it came down to them selling, then I sold off all their equipment and I sold their lab equipment, and I became a consultant for this small brand down in San Carlos. And so I did that for 5 years consulting. And then I also did a small stint with JC Sellers in Oakland. His assistant winemaker hurt his back like right before bottling. And so I came in and took over for the bottling timeframe, like for 2 months. So I was just kind of it was great to work in other people's cellars to see how they made wine. And also around that time, I started going to France and meeting with winemakers. And they were really cool to bring me in behind the scenes and talk to me about winemaking and see how they did it. And then I really started to clue into natural winemaking and terroir-driven wines. And it kind of was all starting to come together. Before that, I was also doing the certificate program, the certificate in winemaking at Davis. So that's a different way of winemaking. Doing a lot of additives and being very clinical, where then when I went to France, it was kind of like unlearning that. And that's kind of how I make wine now.
Did you start Tessier as kind of a natural leaning winery from the start, or did you more gradually lean into that side of it?
Definitely. It just kind of happened over time. I mean, I was so nervous in the beginning that I didn't want anything to go wrong. I was putting my money into this from my past career, and the partner I was with at the time was like, "What are you doing? This is crazy." Not very supportive. So that didn't help either. And it wasn't until I got more confidence working with, making more vintages and working with the same fruit kind of year after year, and then going to France and kind of putting it all together, that I went fully natural in 2015. I was reading about native ferments. I really wanted to do it, but I was afraid.
Okay.
It just seems so scary coming from the science world. But I was, I really wanted to do it. And I already was like super into terroir driven, really let the fruit be the spokesperson for the wine. And, but right, it wasn't until 2015 that I went all native.
Does your science background help you monitor fermentations or ML? Do you think that helps you get ahead of any issues that might be developing?
Yeah, for sure. It's a helpful guide to use science, just to, clue in to where it's at. I mean, I can kind of guess when I taste, but it's just nice to really know and know if there's a problem occurring, when you look at like volatile acidity. And I mean, yeah, you can smell it, but it's just good to know a number and kind of see like how much it's going up. And when you need to really worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And just pH is super important. Like, even though I feel like I could kind of guess, it's really good to know the number because that's what keeps your wine protected and safe. So that's a very helpful one to know. And that's one of them, the big ones that I use to figure out what I'm going to pick then.
Okay. You kind of base your picking on a lot of it's based on pH.
Yeah. Acid, and then second bricks, and then weather, then logistics.
Do you find logistics can be one of the more challenging parts picking as a small winemaker?
For sure. Just like the weather has been really intense, and then it seems like it always is falling around Labor Day weekend, and then it's really hard to get a truck. Like, as a small winemaker, a small brand, I don't have a space. I don't have a truck. I have to rent a box truck because they never have any flatbed truck. So you have to make sure you can get that. And then just trying to figure out where, to drop the bins that night or get up there that morning. And if you can stay the night at a hotel nearby, that makes it easier. So you're not driving so early and you have enough sleep. I mean, I'm a lot nicer to myself now, but in the beginning I would just, get up at 3 a.m., drive there, get the fruit, and then drive back and process it. And I just, I'm trying to do things better and just give myself rest and try to, I don't know, make a good plan, make a solid plan, not stressed out plan.
Maintain as much sanity as possible during that time.
Right.
The vineyards you work with are spread out through a pretty large area. So I imagine you put some miles in during harvest time, like Arroyo Seco and Santa Cruz Mountains, and then over to El Dorado. Is there anywhere
Anderson Valley.
Anderson Valley. Okay.
And San Benito. But everywhere it's like 2 hours all around Berkeley. Like Berkeley, I always feel like is my center spot because that's where I live. And then the winery is in Healdsburg. So yeah, it's a lot of driving. And I keep trying to get trucking to help me out, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And I'm back in the old U-Haul truck.
The first vintages were Pinot. And where did you go from there with grapes?
Yeah, I was obsessed with Pinot. So the first 3 years, that's all I made. But I went to France and I was in the Southern Rhone, and I was really wowed by Grenache on its own in Gigondas. And then I was thinking, when I get back, I'm going to find some Grenache. And that's when I connected with El Dorado, with Ron Mansfield. And, he was such a supporter and such a great guy, just like it was a handshake deal. But he wanted to meet me in person before he would sell me fruit. And then the mountain fruit is so cool. It's just massive, massive clusters. So 2012 was the first vintage I made Grenache. And from there, I don't know what happened. Now I make so many, like I've added on, Riesling, Albarino, Pinot Gris. What else? I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. Chardonnay, Mortal, Syrah, Mourvèdre, Cab Franc, Gamay.
Little of everything.
Little of everything, but mainly French varietals except for the Albarino. But now it gets harder, or I mean, not harder, but like I really want organic fruit. And so now I'm kind of looking to be like, what do you have? All that's organic. And then I try to think like, would that be an interesting wine? Let me see what that's like. So
do you try to keep your focus on French varietals?
Yeah, that's my main area of passion. And I did the French Wine Scholar program over COVID just to even further my love of French wines. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is always something I'm really into. And I'm going to France in May. And whenever I go, I'm super inspired and come back with like new ideas and new grapes that I want to seek out and try. New wines I want to make.
Do you have any grapes right now that you've really wanted to work with that you haven't been able to yet?
You know, Gamay, I haven't been able to make it for the past 3 years, and I really miss it. That is one of my favorites for sure. I'd like to find some Trousseau as well. I just like those light reds. It's still in that Pinot Noir kind of family. Like I love light but complex. And subtle.
You made Gamay a few years from Barsotti. Is that where the Gamay came from?
Right, but the fires in 2020 and 2021, and then last year there was a lot of frost and they didn't have much, and then fires like right before everything was harvested too, just kind of didn't work out. But I'm hoping for this year.
Yeah, Mother Nature has been a little bit cruel the last couple of years.
Definitely. I mean, it's made me pivot, and I get a little bit. I mean, this is why I'm happy that I get fruit from all of these areas, that I can pivot and not be like totally like, oh, I'm at a loss. Mm-hmm. So I've been getting a lot more from San Benito and Arroyo Seco because of that from the last 2 years.
What is it exactly that you source from down there?
Arroyo Seco, I started working with Zabala Vineyard in 2017. I was seeking Riesling because it's a great area for it. It's like the soil is an old riverbed and there's lots of granite and pink granite, just tons of boulders, like super rocky. And I think like the expression is really neat and lots of minerality. And then I just added on Chardonnay. And that was from the last time I went to France in 2019. I was really inspired by a skin contact Chardonnay I had with a small natural producer in Beaujolais. And then I'm like, when I get back, I want to experiment with skin contact Chardonnay. And then I got Grenache last year as well to put into the Femme Fatale Rosé, because I love that the Grenache and Pinot together. It's a sweet spot for rosé, in my opinion.
For the orange wines, when you are doing the skin fermentation, are you doing any extended aging on the skins, or are you fermenting on the skins for a few days or until dryness? How do you manage and decide how long to go with those?
I every year it's an experiment, but I usually kind of test out, like with the Riesling, the first year I did 2 days on the skins and then kind of saw how I liked that. So then I was like, oh, for 2018, I'm going to do, another day longer. Like, because I've been trained in the lab, I write everything down very meticulously in my lab notebook to remember what I did, previously, to kind of carry it forward or make changes. So a lot of them I kind of start with 2 to 3 days and see if I want to increase it. I haven't done any extended time on the skins. So usually we bring it in, destem it, put it into bins, then wait the amount of time, and it usually starts fermenting, and then press it and let it finish fermenting in stainless steel.
Are you keeping it in stainless its entire aging life until bottling, or does it tend to go to wood or anything?
This year I did get some neutral French oak barrels, so I've been experimenting with that a little bit. The Pinot Gris I put in the barrel for a couple months And now the Chardonnay is in barrel for a little bit, just to give some mid-palate and kind of texture or body to the wine. So it's just like another little tool, but I'm still, this is like the first time I've been doing it. We'll see if I carry it forward.
And a lot of your reds use some percentage of whole cluster fermentation. What do you like about some whole cluster on the reds?
It gives that partial carbonic vibe. So a little bit of those fruitier notes. It just kind of amplifies the fruity banana-like aromatics. And then also, I like that it's more terroir from the place, leaving the stems on. I'll usually do, like one bin of the 6 bin. So it works out to be like 25%, 20% that I keep whole cluster. And it's just, incorporating more for more expression from the sense or from the place.
Okay, so that tends to be an entirely separate fermentation than the destemmed fruit.
No, it goes in together. So usually I put the whole clusters in first into the tank, and then we put the destemmed on top.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Or in a fermentation bin, we'll put like kind of by eye the whole cluster in first, and then the destemmed fruit on top. And sometimes like with the Pinot Noir from 2019 from Anderson Valley, I did 100% whole cluster. Like the clusters were just so beautiful and perfect that I loved like just the tactile sorting them. And I'm like, I don't want them to go through a machine to be destemmed. So like sometimes I make decisions like that, and like it's really neat to see how that ages and changes. And then for the 2019, I did 50% whole cluster. I just did last, but just the fruit was so beautiful that year that just my instincts were like, don't do anything,
What are some of the differences you noticed working with the Anderson Valley Pinot versus the Santa Cruz?
Those are my 2 favorite areas for Pinot Noir. And the Anderson Valley fruit is a lot more earthy. It's coastal, but it's in the valley there at Filigree Farm. And the Pinot that I've worked with for 2018 and 2019 is old vine. They were planted in, they're 75-year-old vines and on St. George rootstock, and they're all Pomard clone. And that's a really earthy clone anyways, but the vines don't function as well. Like they're not as prolific. They don't put out as much fruit, but the fruit is very high quality with thicker skins. And just lots of earthy notes like beets, rhubarb, cherry, in contrast with the Santa Cruz Mountain Pinot, which is in Corralitos. So it's low elevation, and there's lots of sandy soils, lots of morning fog, which there's fog in Anderson Valley too, but it's more coastal. And the expression of fruit is more pomegranate, hibiscus. And it's a blend of clones, where the Anderson Valley is just the one clone. So I think it gives it like more fruitiness. And then just kind of the terroir of each of the places. Like in the Anderson Valley, I get like pine resin, tar, and the Santa Cruz Mountain Pinot would get like bay leaves and like fennel pollen. Like when you're walking around the vineyards, I smell the fennel all the time. And I feel like it gets into the wine too.
What are some of the elements that an ideal wine has for you?
I like a couple years in the bottle. And then I just think that brings out more and more complexity. And I love when it keeps evolving in the glass. Like you open it and you're like, oh, wow, it seems kind of closed. And you keep swirling it and talking with your friends and then waiting and then revisiting it. And then you'll get like more layers. And as time goes on, you get even more. And then maybe you'll be like, wow, I really want another glass of that. And then it's already like at a different point because it's been open for a little while. And I just love complexity and just not in your face. Like I want to take the time to discover it. myself. That's probably why I like Pinot Noir and Gamay.
Yeah, all those lighter reds.
Yeah.
Did you have any difficulties getting started as a woman in the wine business?
I mean, that's a loaded question.
I know. I'm sorry.
Of course. But a lot of annoyances for sure. But it just made me stronger, and I really just worked harder to prove myself and try to not let it bother me. And now I feel like there are a lot of things that are out there for women in the industry, a lot of groups to support them, which I wish I would have had, but I didn't. And I also try to reach out to other female winemakers that I see in the field and just kind of say, like, I see you and I know how hard it is and keep up the good work kind of thing. But Batonage is a great thing that was started. I can't remember when it started, maybe 2017 or something. And it's really like a community of women in all aspects of the wine industry. And then Wine Fair, also in San Francisco, started by Pamela Bush, is all natural winemakers, but like putting forward women in the industry. And it's been really nice to just connect in that way. And I started a wine tasting group in 2016 with all women, and now it's called the Nasty Women Group. I mean, we did it like from the Trump days. That's why it got renamed to that. I think it was like Bible study before that. And I can't always attend, but like I got it going, and I just passed it off to another woman to just kind of keep it going, because I think it's really beneficial for women that want to just get into the industry and start tasting and just practice. It takes practice to smell and use your sense memory to attach the flavors and smells. And so it's been hard, but I feel like this is going to be my 15th harvest this year in 2023, which is amazing. I feel like I've made it against all odds, and those are some of the tools that I feel like are helpful now.
That's great that you're able to kind of support the next generation, give more resources.
Yes, exactly. And there are a lot of allies out there. I mean, so I just keep looking for my community and people that care about me and my business and that are there for me. That's really important because it's a very challenging career.
Every bottle of yours, you have the science as art on the label. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, it's something that I had on since the beginning. And the first 10 years of the Tessier label was a round image, like you're looking through a microscope, and it had a depiction of yeast cells budding off. And then after 10 years, I decided I should have like a fresher look. And I met a really great graphic designer that's helped me a lot. So then I was looking at all these science images, and I'd always said this when I was working as a scientist, like, oh God, this would be such a cool piece of art. So the one that's on the label now is the underside of a sage leaf secreting oil. But just when you're looking at it, it just looks cool and globular, but it's, like a lava lamp. It's really relaxing. But it is like a nerdy science thing. So science is art in that way. And then also I feel like I wanted to change my direction of my personality and my approach to life, rather than being so analytical, to being more creative and being more calm and kind of letting go and not trying to control things. So it's kind of that way, like looking to art more, but they're both important together, and it's a balance. And I think I'm always kind of working on that.
Has that transition been hard, going from somebody very analytical to then natural winemaking, where you're kind of intentionally limiting yourself?
I mean, it was in the beginning, but I liked pushing myself in that way. And I feel like now, after 15 years, I'm kind of coming into something new, and I'm really getting into music and community, and it's kind of the path that I wanted my life to go. So I had that, acorn nugget of it way back when I was 30, and now I'm able to see it come into fruition, and I feel really happy about it.
Awesome. You just mentioned the music, but you do music pairings with each wine, and you also have a monthly show, the KXSF monthly show. What's music mean in your life?
As when I was young, from 3 until 17, I danced ballet, jazz, and acrobatics. And I didn't think it was a big thing, but it really did make me listen to music and feel music. And so it's always been something I turn to um, feel better, I guess, or feel sad, or just set a mood. But it just feels like therapy to me or something. And then when I was in college, I saw so many bands. Like that was my scene, was like seeing all the garage bands and the basement bands at University of Michigan, and going to Detroit just to see every band that I could get a ride to, that I could afford the ticket to. But there's something in music that I like, that it's analytical, but then you lose control and you're just making this piece. And I wanted to join a band, and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I started taking guitar lessons, bass lessons, and I was not good at it. Like it was way harder than I thought. So I think that I'm just a bystander. Like it just does something to me watching live music and hearing music that I can detach and feel really happy. So all that being said, I was always the woman in the lab. Like I would go out late at night and then come in later and like, okay, so, so when you talk to me for a little bit, like I was not late, where no one else went out late or like, did anything. That was always something that was part of my life. So when I started making wine, I'm always listening to music when I'm tasting wines and like doing the process, like pressing and putting it into barrel and then topping. I feel like the wine has a personality to me. And then I wanted to have it be like an experience. Like the Velvet Underground did this. Like they were one of the first ones to have music and like lights and art and kind of immerse it all together. So it's experience rather than I'm drinking wine. So my idea was to pair the wine with a song. And so we started doing that, and all of those are on the website too. I got interviewed on KXSF last year, and I thought, like, oh my God, this is so cool. I would love to do this. And then I wanted to be a DJ in college, but I was kind of shy. And I also was really busy with my lab classes, and I couldn't really add anything extra in there to do that. But my friend was like, you can do it. Like, let's get you in here. And so now I have a monthly show on KXSF, which I'm still kind of nervous and terrified, but it's neat when you're in the studio, no one can see you, and I'm just playing music, which I love. And it's just like another way to be part of music. I've just did my 7th show, and it's a wine and community radio station. So I like to have people on to interview them and hear their stories, as well as playing music like built around their stories. Or I've also done my harvest playlist, like what I do to prepare for harvest. Like I make a really cool playlist every year and kind of share that with everybody. And then I did a picnic playlist because I was doing a lot of picnics at the time. It's like my favorite thing to do. But yeah, I love KXSF supper sessions on Sundays, 5 to 7. I do it once a month.
That's awesome. Do you enjoy the rush of being kind of live on air?
It is a rush. It's kind of scary. And it's neat that you're just by yourself in the studio, which that calms me. But really the board is really old school, and you have to do everything manually. So it's kind of stressful because everything has to be done so timely. And then you have to be calm on the air. So again, it's that juxtaposition of being like analytical, but then also being calm and cool and creative, which is it's fun to challenge myself in that way. And like every once in a while, I feel like I'm in the zone, but I'm always trying to work towards that feeling. Work in progress.
Yeah. Anything favorite to play on the station?
I mean, I've been really into soul music. So I think like my favorite one was when I interviewed Lisa from the Punch Down in Oakland. And I did a playlist, Punch Drunk Love, and it was all love music, but it was a lot of it was soul. So like Otis Redding, Lee Fields, Bill Withers. It was really good. And I'm seeing Lee Fields tomorrow night at the Chapel. I'm so excited about.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's another thing that I do to be involved with music. I am a volunteer at the Fox Theater and the Greek Theater in Berkeley. And any show that I want to see, I sign up for to like help seat people, and then I get to see the show. And it gets me out. I see more live music, and I'm, part of the community.
That's awesome. That sounds like a pretty fun volunteering gig. See lots of shows.
Yes, definitely. I love it. And so many good shows are coming to the Greek this summer that I'm so excited about. Like Sylvanesso, Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Big Thief. Like, those are going to be great shows. Like Outside, Under the Stars.
You got your summer plans all filled up already,
Yes.
huh? You have some new spring release wines out. Can you tell me about what you just released?
Yeah, we got 5 new wines out. 20, they're all 20, well, no, they're not all 2022, but most of them are. Electric Ladyland, which is an orange blend, and it's a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. Then the Femme Fatale Rosé, tribute to the Velvet Underground, and that's Grenache and Pinot blend. The Electric Ladyland is 7 different grapes, all varying amounts of skin contact. And then the Soul Love is a tribute to David Bowie, and that one is a Riesling and a couple red grapes blended. So it's a chillable red.
Okay.
Nice. Then also the 2022 Pinot Gris from Filigree Farm, which is 5 days on the skins. It's like a true orange wine. And then finally the 2021 Santa Cruz Mountain Pinot Noir from Severia Vineyard. I didn't make it in 2020, so I'm really excited to put this wine out. I've been working with that fruit since 2013, so it's one of my faves.
Has that wine changed much in the years that you've been working with the fruit? Has it kind of evolved?
Yeah, definitely, it's evolved. There's a neat lineage. Like I love to do a vertical with those. Like we did that during the pandemic, and it's just really, it's a special place, that vineyard, Severia Vineyard. So it's neat to taste it with different vintages. I guess for me, I've been doing less oak just to taste the fruit more. When I started out, I was doing like 20 to 30% new French oak. And this year it's all neutral French oak. So you can just really taste that Santa Cruz Pinot.
How are people able to find out about what you and the winery have going on, or get some of the new releases?
The best way is through the website, and you can sign up for the newsletter so you can get updates on what we're up to and all the new radio shows that we have coming out. And then you can also check on the website the stockists who carry our wines. We try to keep that up to date so you can find your favorite wine shop and say, oh, good, they do have Tessier. Also, follow us on Instagram is a good way to see what's happening. We usually put all of our events out. And then I have a bunch of events coming up. We're doing a takeover at the Punch Down. So it'll be Tessier's some of these new releases, and we're doing pulled pork sandwiches. We're doing food too, so that's really exciting. And that's March 30th. And we'll be at By the Way Wine Fair April 1st. And then doing a winemaker takeover at the Rich Table in San Francisco, and that's on April 12th. I'll be at Raw LA April 23rd and 24th. And then Wine Fair is June 10th, which is all women natural winemakers. And then I'll also be doing Net Diego this year. I wasn't able to do it last year, and that's July 7th and 8th. So can catch me at one of those things to try some of the new wines or whatever wine we're pouring that day. Lots of opportunities. So I'm like super worried that we're gonna like lose connection. So I'm like talking really fast, like so you don't have to drop again. I mean, losing power is not optimal.
Thanks for listening to episode 8 with Kristie. I've especially enjoyed the Soul Love, as well as the Severia Pinot from the Santa Cruz Mountains, and the Movedra she makes from Goldbud Farms in El Dorado. Really great wines. And speaking of El Dorado, our next episode will be with Chuck Mansfield of Goldbud Farms, where he'll be discussing the history of agriculture and viticulture in El Dorado, working with a wide variety of winemakers and farming these high elevation sites. You can follow the podcast on wherever you're listening, and also the Instagram at Indie Wine Podcast for updates, or email indiewinepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a good one.